You know what? I respect the fact that the animators to this episode had no care at all if they showed a bunch of fan service, because honestly, it's been it's been a while, honestly, since I've actually seen an anime just so oversaturated, like an episode oversaturated with fan service within it, because it's like, yes, Eminence and Shadow has had some fan service here and there. Like, let's be honest, Sherry, throughout the past few episodes, there was constant POV perspectives on her rear end. Let's keep it real. Let's be honest here. But the point is that, I don't know, there's just something so hilarious and something just so amusing about animators legitimately not trying to hide the fact that they're like, you know what? We can't do a pool episode. We can't do a spa episode or hot springs episode or beach episode. So we're going to do the next best thing. We're just going to put a bunch of fan servicey, shots, perspectives of our characters throughout this entire episode. This is honestly hilarious. Like, legitimately, I'm not gonna lie, like, this episode had me dying. Like, one of my favorite moments, honestly, is especially where she's, like, trying to grab the undergarments here, okay? She's grabbing it, and then she literally tells her sister, like, I have a finely shaped buttocks. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like oh my god. It's so funny, because it's like, it's obvious that the animators of this episode, they knew what they were getting into. That, like, you know for a fact, when they were at the drawing board, like, when they were, looking at the script, the storyboard, everything for this episode, like, when they were laying down the foundations of how to draw this episode, how to animate this episode, the voice actors, etc., they looked at it and they're like, yeah, the light novel writer definitely was a little bit, down bad in that moment. It's no longer November, so it's like, let's go all in, pretty much, so to speak. And they're like, yeah, let's just go all in. Sure, let's just do it. And they straight up, they really did some funny stuff with this episode. Legit. It's pretty funny. I know there's gonna be a lot of people out there that's gonna watch this episode, and they're probably not gonna enjoy it. That's the truth of the matter. And the reason for that is because those people lack culture. That's one reason. Secondly, obviously, this is a drastically different episode in comparison to the previous, but regardless, I found some amusement to the episode. Now, okay, so besides the obvious, like, most of the episode, honestly, about 80% of this episode is just spent on fan service and, some Yuri-type stuff going on here with the sisters. Besides all of these little scenes, or getting to see, like, the whole beginning sequence here, like, you can see, there is a lot of it. There is absolutely a lot of it. Like, you literally have multiple scenes like this, where the characters are talking, and instead of showing their mouths moving, it's literally their chest just jiggling. It's just like, bro, like, animators down bad, man. They down bad. They legitimately down bad. But I think what makes this scene so funny is, like, once they start doing this, like, they're comparing basically their chest, you have, like, the perspective of, like, the kitty. Like, the kitty starts, like, I don't even need to say anything. Like, it speaks for itself. But, like, I don't know, man. This episode is something else. It is wild. Now, let's get into some serious stuff, okay? That isn't, kind of centered around the fan service nature of this episode. So we get to see Sid in a different situation, or kind of a similar situation that he's had in the past few episodes, honestly, with Sherry and the previous girl, basically, or Alexia, that's her name. Basically, he has now Rose hitting on him, flirting with him, and you could just see by the overall interaction that she is very attached to him. And there's multiple times throughout this episode he tries to get away from her by either slipping his hand from underneath her, trying to get out of the way, to also, sleeping on the ceiling. Like, legitimately, the man was Spider-Manning on the ceiling to stay away from her. It's good, man. Like, I don't know, Eminence and Shadow really does make me laugh. It does. And I think that's one of the main purposes of the show. And I know comedy is subjective. Not everybody's going to enjoy the same amount of comedy, because I know for a fact the enjoyment I have with this episode isn't going to be the same that everybody else feels. But man, you know, it's good. When the comedy hits and you're enjoying a good episode, it really feels good. It's a really good feeling, and that's the feeling I got while watching this. This isn't the highest grade quality episode I've ever seen. Honestly, it's not. By no means is it, but it is honestly a fun and funny episode. I actually did not get to watch this episode yesterday. I was feeling a little bit under the weather. Not gonna lie, I was feeling sick, and I sat down today, watched it, and I was like, yeah, this is quite the episode. This is legitimately quite the episode. Yeah, this is Eminence and Shadow. I honestly cannot wait to actually read the, you know, light novels. I own the first 4 light novel volumes. I made like a manga haul video like a few weeks back or a month ago, but I can't wait to dive into this light novel once the anime finishes, because this is a good show. It's a good show. Anyways, talking a little bit more in depth with the story of the progression of this episode. So, I'm assuming this is the beginning of Volume 2, because, as I talked about in my video last week, is that apparently the first, like, 9 episodes were all of just Volume 1, which blows my mind still. It's crazy. But, I'm assuming Episode 10 starts off, like, Volume 2, and we're getting into the next major arc, which, judging by the way the direction the story is going, and where everything is taking place right now, we're getting into, like, an evil church arc. That's exactly what it's looking like right now. It looks like there is some shady business going on, like, more fan service here, but, there's, like, some shady business in this town with this church, and all of, you know, our characters, like, you know, Epsilon, Beta, you know, Sid, all of our characters are basically here dealing with the situation, and they're probably going to be taking down this church that is probably affiliated with the Demon King Diablos and get rid of him in some shape or form. Now, judging by how these series usually work, like, you know, when it comes to, like, seasons, I believe Eminence is going to be 12 episodes. I don't know if it's going to be a 24-episode series or not. So, judging by how these normally work, you know, anime typically want to end on a big finale, like a big explosive finale, usually. So, I'm going to assume, judging by the way the plot is being structured, and it's not really trying to hide it, because Eminence likes to use cliches. It does. There's no hiding that. It loves to use cliches. Probably, if I had to guess, since we found out within this episode that there was an arm sealed and cut off from, like, the Demon King, somehow, some shape or form of the Demon King is going to resurrect, and Sid, or Shadow, is going to have to fight the said Demon King in some way. That's my assumption of how this series is going to end, at least around episode 11 or 12. Could be wrong there, but that's what I'm assuming. But, yeah, overall, this episode is legitimately good. Now, there isn't really much more to really talk about, besides, obviously, Epsilon, yeah, I believe that's her name, Epsilon, literally ripping off from Shadow's stories. Like, his stories of, like, Cinderella, to Little Red Riding Hood, to literally his own series title, Eminence and Shadow. It's great. But, I love Epsilon. I think out of all the, you know, the characters that's helping out, you know, Sid, like Shadow Garden, I think Epsilon and Alpha are my favorites currently. I really love those two, but I really love Epsilon, just of how shameless she is by just plagiarizing these stories that Sid told her in private. That is what's just so funny about it. It is absolutely hilarious. But, okay, I guess that's about it. Like I said, it's a relatively simplistic episode. There's really not a lot to talk about because of just what the episode really entails. But, yeah, just tell me your thoughts. Honestly, how you guys felt about this episode. Do you think the animators were a little bit down bad? I would say so. I would say they were a little bit down bad, but, you know, all is fun and all that. It's all fun. But, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave me a like, and be safe. Chibi out.